Give me 1 second here. There we go. That should work. Well, I should be. There I am. Okay. All right. How's everybody doing today? Let me stop sharing this. So welcome to a somewhat impromptu Ask Me Anything session today. I'm Brett. I'm your host today. Let's give me 1 minute here so I can get adjusted in the way that I want. So I can kind of see what's going on here. There we are. Okay, so we're ready to go. If you have questions for me and you are watching on Zoom, you can put those questions in the chat box and I'll be happy to answer them for you. And if you have questions for me and you're watching on YouTube, you can put those questions in the chat box too, and I'll be happy to answer them for you there. So anyways, I am going to start. I was going to start. What the hell just happened? Add chats. Where are they? That's bizarro. Where did my chats go? Okay. Some stupid thing. Get rid of that. Okay, there we are. Okay, that's much better. Okay, so let's go with our questions. Okay, first question. Hi, Brett. As a first-time founder, I want to make sure I'm well prepared when talking to investors. Okay, good for you. Are there any specific trainings or courses you'd recommend to learn negotiations, etc.? Okay, well, if we're talking negotiations, I'm going to recommend a book to you. The book is called Never Split the Difference. It's a fairly famous book written, I don't know, about 10 years or so ago by Chris Voss. You can find it on Amazon. Download it, read it in literally, I don't know, by this time next week, you can be up and running and at least have a real good understanding of how negotiation works. Now, having said this, there's not a hell of a lot of negotiation with investors, just from experience. The only way you're going to be able to negotiate with investors is if there's a long lead up here, but is if you have leverage. How do you gain leverage if you have multiple term sheets coming at one time? If you don't, it's going to be pretty hard for you to negotiate in any meaningful way. There might be some small nibbling around the edges, but realistically, not so much. If there are other things that you're trying to learn about, how to raise money and things like that, I'll do a little bit of self-promotion here. You can join my free group, Zero to Pitch, is a way to get started. There was a QR code for that before we started. You could have downloaded that, and that's got some free courses there, information, a free community, a way to get started. If you want to get going faster and you're really serious about this, you can join my paid community, Zero to Pitch Gold. You can see that over my, what is that? My left shoulder right there. You can see it. Scan the QR code. It's all of $150 a month. It's a great deal, about $26,000 worth of goodies in there for all of $150 a month. I have daily office hours where you can talk to me, ask me any questions. There are courses in there that you can learn from. A great community of CEOs who are pretty much doing the same things as you're doing. So those are some tools that you have. But for negotiations, Never Split the Difference is the best book that I would read. Let's go to your next question here. Also, I am currently building the MVP and will look for co-founders. When should I start reaching out to investors? Okay, let me answer that question next, and I'll go to the rest of your questions. Okay. So if you are building your MVP now and you're looking for co-founders, when should you start reaching out to investors? Not yet. You're way early in this process. Typically, unless you have a track record of success, and there's some exceptions to this rule, but pretty much, unless you have a track record of success, it is very difficult to raise money just based on a pitch and a pitch deck. It's really tough to do. I was able to do it. I know some other people have been able to do it, but those are really exceptions, especially in today's world. The rule is pretty much that if you want to raise money, You have to have typically something. You've got to have at least your MVP built maybe to raise a small amount of money. Then you have to start getting some customer traction to raise more money and so forth and so on. So you sound really early in the process, quite frankly. So I would be building out my team, trying to reduce the risk, getting product to market in any way, shape, or form that you can, so that you can start making it easier for yourself to be able to get to raising money. Right now, you're way early in the process. Okay, and then your next question, where can I look for investors? Example, Crunchbase. Yes, Crunchbase is a great tool. Highly recommend it, probably the most comprehensive tool out there. I believe they have a free 7-day trial that you can make use of. So you can go on Crunchbase, you can build out a list of potential investors that are interested in your space, interested in investing at your stage. Good way to get started. But even before that, the first group of investors that almost all of us are going to raise money from. In fact, it's pretty much even companies that quote unquote raise money out of the gate raise money from this group first. And that's our friends, our family, and ourselves. That's usually how we get started. Is we take whatever money we have and we use that to get going. So that's probably the first place on your stops. Okay, let's go to our next question. Hi, Brett. Thanks for your videos. They are so helpful for people like me. God bless. Thank you. You're welcome. Okay, I'm waiting for some questions here. Hello, Brett. Thank you for the videos. They're really helpful. You're welcome. Hello, Brett. Are there any upsides or mostly downsides to joining a pre-seed VC fund? I'm not understanding this question. With an already competitor company that has received funding. Do something here, I should probably make my life better. There we go. That's a better way to look at this. Okay. Let me read the question again. Are there any upsides or mostly downsides to joining a pre-seed VC fund with a competitor company, competing company has already received funding? You don't join VC funds. That's not how this works if we're raising money. You get VC funds or other funds to invest in your company. If they've already invested in a competing company, literally a direct competitor to you, then it is highly unlikely for most VCs to invest in your company at the same time. They usually don't invest in competing companies. They make their bet in a specific space on a specific company. They may invest in adjacent companies and adjacent spaces, but if it's a direct competitor to you, then trying to get the investor to give you money at the same time, it's probably not going to happen, I would say. So look other places. Look at who else in the space. If you're ready to raise seed funding, look at the other funds that are similar, that are interested in your space. I mean, here's the 3 things we want to look for. Okay. Number 1, they're interested in your space, right? So you already found this fund. There are others. Number 2, are they interested in investing at the stage my company is at? In other words, if I'm raising initial funding, I'm raising $500,000, let's say $200,000, whatever it is. Do these investors, be them seed stage VCs or angels or whomever, do they invest this amount? Then the third thing, are they interested in investing where I am geographically? So if let me come up with a crazy instance. Let's say we are in New Zealand and we're going to try and raise money. And we're going to go try and raise money from an investor in Ireland, based in Ireland. Probably unlikely that the Irish investor is going to go invest in New Zealand or vice versa. You never know, but you have to look and see, do they make investments here where I am? You need these 3 things. You need the combination of these 3 things to be able to find investors. I hope this helps. Okay. Next question. Can we directly apply for VC funds without going for angel investing? Yes, of course. Of course, it happens all the time. It's what I did when I raised my money, was I was able to do that. You have to kind of see where you're at. You have to see whether you're at the right stage to be able to do it. Just realized there's a mistake. It's always funny when you do these things, you see mistakes in something you do. So I just realized there's a mistake in something, but for me, but I'll leave it at that. I'll fix it and get it right. So, and anyways, yes, but the question is, will they give you money? This goes back to the first thing that I was saying is, if I'm going to invest in you, remember, this is all about risk. And probably for most of the people that are watching this, it probably holds true that unless you have a track record of success, this is why typically investors will invest early in a company. Like VCs will invest and give a large amount of money to a company early in today's world. You have to have a track record of success. It's kind of binary, 1-0. If you don't have a track record of success, the odds are that an investor is not going to give you money. You have to have something that says, hey, you're worth the risk. Either you've already made people money in the past, you've had success in the corporate world where it's clear you're really great at what you do. Maybe you're a great scientist, a great engineer, whatever, and you've already shown that you can do really good work. And people are like, wow, this person's available and they're trying to raise money for a company. And I like the idea of what they're doing. Sure, that does happen. But those are the exceptions. Unless you fit into those buckets, it's going to be difficult to do. Just trying to be real. Okay, next question on our list. Recently, we got reached out by a few principals from VC funds. Okay. However, they lack the industry expertise to guide us as effective board members. Glad to hear your thoughts on this. The reason why I'm laughing. Okay, so let me tell you my view about what you can and can't expect from boards of directors, what's real and what isn't real about boards. And you're thinking, oh, they're going to give us all this guidance, expertise. My dad had a great saying about this. He used to say, and I remember this discussion I had with him early on in my entrepreneurship career, and I was talking about, oh, we're going to only raise money from tier 1 VCs and all this stuff. And he laughed at me and smiled. And he said, you know, everybody's money is green. That's the first piece of what you're dealing with here. Investors are money people. They're investing in you. Anything else you get beyond the money positively is a bonus. To me, a great investor, maybe I should say it this way, maybe to me, a good investor, so we'll go to good to great. A good investor is an investor that leaves you alone and keeps writing you checks and keeps supporting you and doesn't pull their support. That's a good investor, as long as you're doing reasonably well and you don't need their advice or guidance. Most of it's going to be garbage anyways, quite frankly. So as long as you get that, you're in good shape. That's really what you want. You know, so take the money. Don't worry about the pedigree of the people. And as long as they're going to support you, that's the most important thing. The rest of it's garbage. And every once in a while, you have a really good investor who can really provide advice and guidance and support beyond the norm every once in a while. But most of the time, most of the investors you're going to deal with, if you're looking at them to help guide your company, and I know there's this belief system, oh, they're going to give us all this great advice and all this and that, it's probably not going to happen. So, as my dad said, everybody's money is green. Look for people that are going to invest in you. And as long as they're going to support you and they have the reputations of supporting, which is, by the way, kind of, if you're going to go through a checklist of what we're really looking for. Number one, will they invest? Number two, you know, they're going to do background checks on you. You should do background checks on them. ask to talk to other people who have worked with them. It is perfectly okay to ask for references from investors, and they should be happy to provide them to you. Learn about what these people are like. Did they support us when we had problems? What was it like working with them? What were the issues? And in an ideal world, the people you really want to talk to are the people that failed. Did the investors continue supporting us when we were losing and having trouble? Did they contribute to the problems we had? What happened? You kind of want to learn, what do these people like to work with? Because these are relationships that are going to last 7 to 10 years if things go well. So you want to know who you're in bed with, so to speak. So I wouldn't worry so much about the board meetings, because the board meetings, this is kind of the final point on all of this, is that the other thing that you'll learn is that board meetings are kind of like a necessary evil. You're not going to get into these great strategic discussions in your board meetings. It doesn't work that way. What you'll learn over time, in all likelihood, is that your investors, interestingly enough, want to get out of these meetings as fast as humanly possible. Get in, get out, get done, really is what it's about. They have to do that. They have to do the meetings if they're on the board. By the way, that's another thing you want to look for. There's one investor in particular that doesn't take, one large Silicon Valley VC, who I won't name, who doesn't like being on boards. And there's a reason for it. And the reason he doesn't like being on boards is because then he doesn't have a fiduciary responsibility to the company. Then he can do whatever the hell he wants. Not so good. So you want your big investors to be on your board. I think that's a positive, not a negative, because that means that they have to at least cursorily support you. So the reality is, in the board meetings themselves, there's not a lot that happens. You have to present what's going on with the company, you'll present the information, et cetera. But what you'll learn over time is that board meetings are more about your team than yourself, in that it's a way for the board to interact with the team and learn about the team. That's the value of the board meeting itself. Now, before the board meetings, you want to do something really, really, really smart to protect yourself. And that really, really smart thing to do is have one-on-one meetings with every board member and every key investor before the meeting. Now, why are we doing that? Because we don't want to surprise an investor in a board meeting. If we surprise an investor in a board meeting, that's when problems happen. So if we get the bad news out of the way before the meeting, we tell them, here's this issue we're dealing with. Like, for example, maybe you missed your numbers for the quarter, you missed your revenue numbers, which happens all the time. We missed our numbers, here's what we're doing, to improve. You let them ask their questions, you deal with it then and there. You go through every single board member, every single investor, so nobody's surprised. Then when it comes up in the board meeting, it's not an issue. It's out in the open already. And it keeps the infighting from happening. It keeps the problems from happening. It's how you manage your board. So anyways, long answer to your question. So with that, let's see, do we have any other questions? We're going for 25 minutes. Questions. If you have a question for me, you can put them in the chat box on Zoom or YouTube, either place. And I will be happy to answer the questions there. For you, if you have them, pop them in there, and I will be happy to answer them for you. So just pop those questions in. And if you like what you're hearing today, think you're getting good stuff from me on YouTube and other places, wherever you're learning from me, you want to take it up to the next level, over my left shoulder, as you can see, you can join Zero to Pitch Gold, all of $150 a month. To join, just scan that QR code, click a button, put in your credit card, and you're in. And literally, you could be in office hours in about an hour and a half from now, talking to me in detail about whatever's going on with your business. So we'll leave that there. Let me see if we've got any other handy dandy questions. All right, let's okay, the next question. I am working on a nonprofit. Do you see any VC funds, a nonprofit? How does that work? Any advice is helpful. I'm not super familiar with the nonprofit space. Remember, if we're talking about VCs and it's nonprofit, somehow or other investors have to make money if they're going to give you money. And VCs, they want to make an extreme amount of money because many of their investments fail. And the way that they adjust for all the failures of investments that they have is by having a high bar, and say, if does this investment have the potential, especially let's say we're talking early stage, to make me 10x to 30x on my money. So if it's a nonprofit and there's no way for them to exit the nonprofit, in other words, to liquidate the fund, liquidate the amount of money that they have in your deal, either through an acquisition, likely the two likely roads are either an acquisition or an IPO, and that's not a possibility for your nonprofit. It's not going to happen. So you have to find another source of funds. My instinct without looking into this is it doesn't sound like you're right for venture capital, if that's what you're trying to do. But I could be wrong. So you'll need to do some more research. All right, let's go to our questions. Okay. Please, I need help to know how to assign titles alongside the responsibilities to my team members in our organization, which has 3 constituents. Okay. One constituent is a community and human development institution. The other is a humanitarian institution. And last one is a business constituent, having a chain of companies under it. Okay. That is a pretty broad bunch of stuff, but let me answer the bigger question, which is how do we assign titles at the beginning of our company? So, which is a fairly broad question, and without knowing the specifics of what we're doing, let me tell you some don'ts first. Don't give people titles they don't deserve yet, especially for your co-founders. It can be really dangerous. So a red flag for me, if I'm looking at a company, is if I see a bunch of C-level titles. The whole founding team is all C-level. You have your CEO, which is fine. Somehow or other, you have a CFO, which would be a red flag for a company just starting, be a red flag. CFO, CTO, typically companies do have CTOs at the beginning. But then I see like a CRO, Chief Revenue Officer, a COO, Chief Operating Officer at the beginning, and it just goes a CMO, Chief Marketing, everybody's C. That is a company where the red flags are popping out everywhere. Because why do these people deserve these titles besides we just gave them to them when we didn't know any better? And what happens with title inflation, it's titles, there's a saying that people will say where titles are free, titles are cheap. They're not. And let me explain why. So if now we have this level of C-level executives, right? All C's, and now we hire other people beyond them, they're all going to be VPs. Well, now I've got to pay these people at VP rate instead of maybe they should be directors or managers. So now suddenly you have this inflationary effect because you've put people in roles that they don't deserve yet. So be careful at the start. That's kind of the big don't. Just don't give people roles and titles they don't deserve yet, especially if you have a young team and an experienced team. Give them the roles that they deserve. As founders, the most important thing that we're looking for in a founder at the beginning is, are they fanatical about what we're doing? You want true believers at the start of your company, people that will walk through walls because they so believe in what the company is about. And people like this do not care about titles. They don't care. And if the person that you're trying to bring on is so obsessed about being the CRO or the CSO or the COO or the CMO or whatever, that's not the right person. That's a person that's in it for the wrong reasons. You're looking for somebody who's in it for the right reasons, which is they are true believers in the company. The title is a secondary thing to them, maybe even a tertiary thing. So a great book on this subject, if you're interested, is you can read Phil Knight's book. He's the founder of Nike. He wrote a book called Shoe Dog. And one of the things that really stands out is, number one, his journey wasn't instantaneous success. That's the first thing you learn from reading the book. And the other thing is the people around him, they didn't have the Harvard degrees and the Stanford degrees or anything like that, but they were so in love with the mission of the company that they stuck with it. They didn't care about the titles either. You're looking for people like that, the true believers, at the beginning, who really believe and really fit what you're doing. Okay, our next question. This is a fun question. I get this question every once in a while. It's a double question. How to get the valuation just right? Okay, and what are the dangers to avoid when it comes to valuation? Okay, and then the final piece is the third question, which is really the most important one. Do VCs take the lead in the valuation? The answer is yes to the last piece. The mistakes that people make with valuation are that they will sit there and do whatever tools and things that are out there to figure out what the quote unquote valuation is. Investors do not give a damn about any of it. I did a video on this, which you can find on my YouTube channel about valuation and kind of how it works. But the reality is, especially for early stage companies, and again, if you have competition, there's some adjustment to this, but most of the time, most of us don't. It's very mechanical. Investors need to own a certain percentage of the company. That's how the valuation works. So if you're raising, let's say we're raising $3 million, which would be kind of a smallish kind of round with VCs, since we're talking about with VCs, but let's say it's 3. And you're likely going to give up, I can almost tell you the percentage range you're going to give up is probably going to be, depending upon what you're doing and where you are, anywhere from 15% on the low end to maybe 25 to maybe 30% on the high end. But let's say it's 20, which would be a typical one. So that means our post-money valuation, which is the value of the company after the money's in, is likely going to be about $15 million. That's kind of how valuations work. It's what percentage do we need to own as investors to make this company worth our time? So if you make the argument, look at how much we're worth because I did this analysis or that analysis, it doesn't help you. It's not going to move the needle forward for you at all. Doesn't work. It's not going to sway anybody. And I wouldn't do it. And if you're asked what you think the company is worth, which is a typical question investors ask, there are kind of 2 answers you can give. And I want to explain first why investors ask you the question. It's more of a sanity check. Because if you have this insane notion, for example, that you think, and I've run into this before, by the way, it's really interesting when it happens, and you just know the person doesn't know what the hell they're doing. But when you see somebody, and for example, they think that all they need to give up because they saw on Shark Tank somebody try and do this where, they gave up like 2 or 3% of their company. Well, let's say it's 5% for their $3 million, right? Which would be an insane, 5%, right? So that's 3 million times 20. So that's a post-money valuation of $60 million. If you tell an investor, well, we think our company's worth, $57 million pre-money, and they're just going to laugh at you and you're going to hurt your chances. So don't do that. So understand the kind of the rules of the game. It's percentage based typically at the beginning. So what's the answer? The right answer should be, there are kind of 2. The first thing I would do, which is the kind of the stock answer, which will tell people you've been well rehearsed and well coached, is you say something like this. You say, well, we're going to let the market determine the valuation. Market is investors. It's just like the stock market, right? They're buyers and sellers. You're a seller, they're buying a percentage of your company. There has to be an agreement between the 2 of you in terms of what it's worth. But the market kind of sets the price. The second thing, if they say, well, that's nice, great, thank you for that, appreciate where you're coming from. The second answer can be this. I still like to hear your thoughts. You say, well, give them a range. So just like I said, well, what we've seen in deals like ours and the research we've done seems to be that the range for our company, I forgot what I said with the post money was originally. Let's say it's like somewhere or other, we're going to give up, 15 to 25% of the company, something like that. That's what you would say. And that's as if you're raising 3, it's a 15, we think it's going to be somewhere in the range, I don't know, 12 to $18 million is probably the range of valuations that we're looking at. Seems about right. It's non-committal. It kind of gives them a range, which is kind of in the logical range. The deals are done at that stage of company. and says you're being realistic and real. That's the way to handle that piece of the discussion. I hope that helps. Okay, do we have any other questions? I'm going to go back to my question machine. See what else we've got in terms of questions. If you have a question for me, you can put it in the comments column on Zoom or YouTube, and I'll be happy to answer it. And as I said previously, if you are interested in taking it up a notch, like kind of the stuff that I do, and you want to work with me in a more detailed way and in a closer way, you can join my paid group, Zero to Pitch Gold. I have office hours literally every single day, and you can scan the QR code and join right now. You could literally be in office hours in a little over an hour. Okay, let's see our next question. So just trying to find a good question to answer. Where do I find the right CTO? Okay, that's always an interesting question to answer. Where can you find co-founders? So the best place to find co-founders and team members, especially early team members, is your network. I would start getting in the habit of asking every single person I know, do you know anybody that can help me? I'm looking for this. Do you know anybody that fits this? And what you'll find is you're going to get a lot of no's, but every once in a while you say, yeah, I know this person or that person. And you meet with that person and you talk to them, see whether there's a match or not. And many times there won't be, but then you can ask the same question to them and say, do you know anybody that can help me? That's what I would do as a first step, because people that you know, the closer the relationships are to you, ideally, you know somebody. And you can go reach out to them. But if you don't, then start asking people that you know, hey, this is what I'm looking for. Literally ask everybody, your friends, your relatives, everybody that you know. And you'll be amazed at how many people know people. And this is a way to start building out a network of people that can potentially help you. It's a way to get started. So that's what I would do as step one. Hopefully that works. Step two, and each one of these steps, by the way, the further away you get from your own personal network, the more risk that there is in this, because you don't know the people. It does work and people do it, but the closer you are, the more likely these things are to work. So think about it that way. So the next piece I would do is I would start doing LinkedIn searches and say, well, I'm looking for an engineer with this kind of experience. They hopefully, ideally, also, you can find people that are geographically close to you. Again, why? Because it reduces risk. So I'm sitting here in Northern California. If I'm going to start a company tomorrow, I'm going to look for people that are right around here. Why? Because I don't want somebody halfway across the world if I can avoid it, because it's going to increase my risk if somebody's halfway across the world. It works, people do it, but you can be so much better off if you can find people that are local right there with you, because then you can have a bunch of impromptu conversations. You can bond better. You can see each other face to face in person rather than over Zoom or whatever tool you're using. It reduces risk for you and your investors. And really, when you think about it, you want to reduce risk for yourself. So try and find people that you know. If you can't, then go on LinkedIn and look for people locally. See if you can get them excited by what you're doing. That would be my second round of things to do. And then beyond that, there's a whole bunch of grab bag things that you can try. And again, it's the further away, it's going to get harder, and the chances of success are going to go down. But you can go to meetups, you can go to conferences, you can do all these various things, and maybe you can get fortunate and find somebody that you want. Okay, let's see if we have any other questions today. Any other questions? You can put them in the chat box on Zoom or YouTube. If you're watching there, you can do that. Any other questions, just pop them in there and I'll be happy to answer them for you. Okay. Okay, here's a really good question. Which co-founders should raise money? Okay, I run into this every once in a while. And let's say that there's a team of three people. There's you, there is a co-founder, is you the CEO, co-founder who's technologist, maybe a third person, maybe he's a developer or something like that. Which one of the three of you is the key person to be raising the money? The CEO, always. The reason for this is the investor's main bet is on you, the CEO. So they want to meet with you, they want to get to know you, and you have to be the one to lead the charge. You have to be the one, you're the person. If they don't trust you, if they don't believe in you, full stop, then it's a fait accompli. So then you shouldn't be the CEO. That's just the way it goes. Okay, any other questions? You can put them in the chat box and I will be happy to answer them for you. I'll give you guys another minute or so to ask me anything. Okay, looks like we don't have any more questions. Okay. All right. Well, looks like we are done for today. Oh, okay, I don't know what this is. It just sent me an email. Okay, that's nice. Thank you for sending me an email. Do you have a question? We'll look in my emails and see whether there's a question there. Nope. Does not look like it. So unless I can see it. If you have a question that you want me to answer, please put it in the chat box on Zoom or YouTube. If you're on YouTube, that's fine. So it doesn't look like we have a question. Sorry if there was some confusion to the Zoom audience about the timing of this today. Didn't mean that to be. So my apologies for that. So anyways, look, with that, glad to be here today. If you like this stuff, you want to go deeper in what you're doing with your startup, you want to move faster, you can join my paid community, Zero to Pitch Gold, all of $150 a month. Just scan that QR code over my left shoulder, and you could be in a heartbeat and participating in my office hours in about an hour. And getting a lot of guidance on everything from your pitch deck, what to do with your business, any of the questions you want like this, but in a lot more detail, because the beautiful thing is in that group, we actually talk to each other rather than it kind of being a webinar format. Okay, you have a question embedded in all 8 screenshots. I don't know how to answer that, unfortunately, because I need to kind of see what the screenshots are, and I'm not seeing the question anywhere, unless it's maybe you sent it to me on school or something. Let's see. No, no, I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm just not seeing it. So, anyways, that will be for another day or time. And if you put that in the community section of the group, of the Zero to Pitch group, then that'll be answered by somebody or by me. So anyways, sorry about that. But I don't have a question here. I don't see it. I don't see it emailed to me in any way, shape, or form. I'm sure you did, but I'm not seeing it yet. So Anyways, look, with that, thank you all so much. Next week, there will be no Ask Me Anything, but for the Zero to Pitch members, there will be a webinar, which will be pretty cool, on how to fix your pitch deck, which should be fun. Never done that one before, so that'll be fun to do. So that'll be for the members, our 1,800 member community, actually, by the way, of Zero to Pitch. So anyways, thanks a lot, everybody. Take care. Bye.